The most thought-provoking hour of the day, dropping jewels and nuggets for the next 60 minutes. For us, by us. You're listening to the Hold Your Point podcast.
Hello. What up? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Peace to the planet, wherever we finding you at on this tantalizing Tuesday. This is the Hold Your Point podcast, and we are the Hold Your Point podcast crew. My name is Fortunato. We got DTH in the building. We got Mr. Daryl James, Levi Strauss. And you know, on our platform, man, we talk about Black culture and the experience from a Christian millennial perspective. And, we're ready to tap in. We got another great series. We're taking a little bit of a slight turn. So we got a 3-part series that we want to start off with y'all this evening. But, man, we ready to tap in with the guys, man. What's going on, fellas? How the week's been?
Yo. What's up? How y'all doing, man? Y'all good?
Chilling, man. Chilling like a villain. You know?
Yeah, man. Hey, the week's been great, man. I'm just you know what I'm saying, a little upset. I'm like, man, I thought these supposed to be my brothers, man. Why I ain't get the memo of the head covering, man?
Here we go.
Y'all supposed to be my boys. Ain't nobody tell me nothing.
Man, you know this is a weekly cadence by now. I don't know why you act like it's new.
I thought about not wearing it tonight, but then I was like, nah, I ain't that fresh, so I'm gonna have to throw it on. But...
Man, I've been 14, 15, whatever episodes we in strong. I can't stop now, man. I gotta keep going.
Won't stop.
But nah, I've been good, man. Just work.
Hey, what you got, a iced out bear shirt?
Honestly, man, I don't even know the brand of this. I just like the cartoon. But yeah.
Didn't Ralph Lauren have that with the polo? I don't think that's the same bear though. It looks
something like it.
I don't know. I just liked it, so I bought it.
It's cute.
All right.
It is cute. It's nice.
Well, I'm especially grateful, man. We had a slight 3-day weekend, and any extra day off to detach from just that 9-to-5 world, man, and get back right is always good. You know what I'm saying? I got a little vacation coming up. I'm looking forward to. You know what I'm saying, man? And just trying to stay positive, man. There's so much going on right now in the news, and just it's like the world is on fire, man. So if you catch a little piece of peace somewhere, we just hold on to it and try to enjoy the moment, man. I have this thing, right, where it's like I don't do it too much anymore. But when I was younger, like I would actually, it's gonna be funny, but I would actually close my eyes when I was drinking juice, so I can really savor the moment of the flavors and everything. And it's just because you're never gonna get that moment again, man. So you just enjoy it to the fullest. So
drinking juice, you never gonna get the drinking juice moment. That's so
funny,
left field.
Man.
Hey, it's the simple things in life, right?
That's funny, man. My brother Mike used to say the way he drank juice would he'd be slurping it all loud and stuff, and he's like, that's the way you get the most flavor out of it, So
I feel that way about food, and I know a good friend of ours who gets mad at me for it, but it's okay.
Savoring the moment.
The fact of the matter is enjoy the moments, because the moments is only what we have, man. So, but we got an interesting topic, man. We want to jump right into. You know what I'm saying? And we want to talk a little bit about religion versus spirituality. And I know it's a lot to unpack in that. So we probably might just have time for some of the religious aspects. But, we definitely want to tap in, man, and talk about religion a little bit because, right now more than ever, there's levels to religion that's becoming more trendy, right? And it's always been a thing where it's just multiple religions. It's always been fascinating to human culture and stuff like that. So we want to tap in a little bit. I wanted to ask y'all first, just to jump right into it, man. What do y'all think are some of the origins behind religion, just all together?
I guess I can kind of jump in there. I feel like mostly every religion is based off of probably 3 different origins, and that's your belief system, um, your moral system, and they normally have like some kind of ritual, right? But I think that's usually what every religion that I can think of is that has those three components. So
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think most religions, are centered around, some type of like higher deity or something bigger than yourself. That's really what when it comes down to you practicing a religion, it's you thinking of something other than yourself. In most cases, you see some obscure ones nowadays, but like in most cases, it comes from something that is taken from something that's taken from a higher power, and you give rituals, as DJ said. You give rituals, you give practices, you meditate upon that, whatever it is, in that sense, whatever religion. As for me, as most of us, we focus on Jesus Christ, and that's our religion. So when I think about a religion, um most of that is focused on what things that Jesus said, Jesus did, things that Jesus told us to do. So that's Christianity in itself, So in another sense, they would take something and practice it in a sense. But
Yeah, yeah. So when I was looking stuff up,
what you go
what
ahead, go
happened?
ahead.
What
Nah,
happened?
fortunately, I don't want to say something, but it's okay.
Well, he
I'm
gonna
gonna
wait.
wait. I'm gonna wait.
He
All
gonna
right.
wait. No, well, I was gonna say I saw something as I was kind of doing a little research, a little bit. From a science perspective, they have two prevailing, or I guess two thoughts that are the most popular among scientists on the theory of how religion and religious thoughts came about. The first one is actually called HADD, which stands for hypersensitive agency detecting device. They say that the first humans developed uh, this device within their brains that basically helped them make sense of the world around them. So, like for example, they said, imagine early humans, whatever, like they're hunting for food, right? And then they see the raindrops fall, and so they don't know what the raindrops are doing,
yeah,
but because
Yeah.
it's something different, they're like they attribute some type of supernatural,
being inquisitive
agency.
of it. Yeah,
Yeah, agency meaning, and the key term agency meaning that they're operating on their own. So they're saying that people didn't understand that, uh, raindrops is just part of the weather and how things work, but more so that these raindrops are being propelled by themselves or maybe by something else, and there's a purpose for it. So that's what science says. That's not necessarily what I believe, but apparently this is what science is talking about. And then there's another belief system that's closely related to that. But honestly, I have my own understanding of how religion came about. To be honest, I believe that because as a Christian, and I guess we'll talk more about that, but there is no other way, right? It's only Christ. Christ is it. So, but the reason why I feel that there are all these other religions out there is because people are trying to make sense of the world, right? They came from a place of how do we get here? What is my purpose? All of that kind of stuff, and they're they come up with these ideas that, for whatever reason, sounds good and it helps them explain what's going on. But ultimately, they're trying to get back to God. But obviously, with the fall of Adam and Eve and everything like that, people get scattered, people get confused on what's really the truth. So they're trying to make sense of it.
yeah,
I mean, that's interesting too. Like, not to jump in real quick, but it's interesting that you said like what you said had, right? Is that like a had
Yeah,
theory? Because
hypersensitive agency detection device.
yeah, and I think it's overly the scientists gonna put like 20 on 10, but like I think because I was doing some research too, and it's like a lot of the I guess I would say like a lot of the general origins of religion that I found is like where people were just trying to make sense of, what was, like you said, what was going
That's
on
what I was gonna
around them.
say. Yeah.
Because like, they had, remember too, like real primitive times, like they had 12 hours of sunlight where the sun was up, it was providing heat, they could see, they can do everything they could, whatever. And then 12 hours of darkness where they couldn't see, it was cold, they didn't understand it. And so like a lot of these early, like, people started worshiping the sun because they felt like the sun provided them, safety, provided them security, provided them, like, just the ability to function, versus when the sun wasn't there and, they had to, I mean, it was dark, just the
Yeah,
counterparts of it.
yeah, it's cold and they looking for shelter. The sun brings warmth. That's kind of what it, in a way it helps with life, right? Like you see the plants and uh, forage and flowers, whatever, growing with the sun, and in the wintertime
Right.
these things die. So that's a big part of it too.
Yeah. Yeah. DTH. I know you said the science, but that Fortunato hit it right on the head. That's in essence what I think religion is about. Is everybody's in search for trying to see, who's the person that create this raindrops, like you said, or the person create this sun. Like, what's the reason why I'm here? So that's why I feel like a lot of people are searching for God, right? And then they put their own interpretations as to who this God is, or how can I get in touch with this God, right? So yeah, you hit it
and
right on the head.
and to certain degrees, they wasn't even looking for God, they were just looking for security, they was just
A
looking for
higher power.
safety.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so it's like they didn't know like what they was looking for. They just knew that when this object came up, like things were better
I
than
can't
when the
control
sun
it.
was not
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so like, go
no,
ahead, Luke.
no. I was gonna say it taps into like part of what religion part of it is. Like it gives people a sense of organization. It gives you a sense of what comes next. Like you kind of know a little bit about, all right, this is what's gonna come, and I know how to expect this. It's not necessarily chaos in your head. It's easier to compartmentalize things in your head when you tie it to a set of beliefs and you tie it to a set of practices, or like people maybe who have worshipped the sun, like you guys have mentioned. There was so many religions, the Egyptians, all these people have sun gods, and the Greeks, they had the Zeus, who believe, I don't think he was a sun god anyway. But you have all the religions who mainly have like the sun as like some type of deity,
Yeah, it's a
because it's
central
like
figure.
yeah, it gives people a sense of organization. It tells time in a sense, so
And so like, I mean, I know we touched on it a little bit too, but just considering, because I looked it up. I mean, we probably all know, but like the actual definition of religion is like, believing in a higher power. And so it's like, why do y'all think like religion is just so important to like people in general? Because I and I'll preface it this way, because I think like what happens a lot of time, just like considering like with early Africa, right? I seen this I think I told y'all before, but I seen this documentary called like Roots to Africa or something like that, and it's pretty much like the history behind how voodoo started.
mm,
And it's like these people like went from, like, it's almost like a desperation, like they they're wanting, like, either sometimes they tap into the wrong power, and now that they believe this is it, and now all of a sudden like they keep chasing the wrong thing. Because I mean, remember, like we talked about the garden, we talked about the wilderness, like how the devil is just like always just cunning and trying to do something, and trying to like step in the way and say this is it, when it's really not.
Hmm.
And so like if it's to the point of believing in a higher power, like how important y'all think religion is when people are probably tapping into the wrong powers and saying, now this is our God.
Well, I think today religion is less important to a lot of people because I think the way we see society going in general, I mean, I guess technically most people are religious still. Most people are either professing Christians or Muslims or Jews, right? These are the predominant religions throughout the world. So I guess from a numbers standpoint, there's probably still more religious people than not. But I think the trajectory of everything is that less and less people are religious. But I mean, for those who are, I think, and Strauss touched on this a little bit, the organization, right? The comfort, the safety that religion provides. It helps you make sense of things. It provides a code for you to live by. So when you come up against certain uh, issues in your life or different circumstances where you need to
Yeah.
make decisions, religion is there for a lot of people to guide them on, okay, what's the best thing I should do based
Yeah.
on the scenario, based on what I believe. Religion for a lot of people is going to tell them what kind of decision they should make. But again, I do feel religion is religious beliefs are clearly deteriorating. And so to that degree, I would say religion is a good thing to the degree that at least it gets people acting right for the
Doing the
most
right
part.
thing.
For the
Yeah,
most part. Now,
I feel you.
so
Yeah.
doing the right thing, not necessarily for the right reasons, which is something else, but at the very least, I think religion does get people to do the right things. Whether they're heart centered or not, that's a different subject, and maybe we'll
Yeah.
get to that. But I think at least for the benefit of getting people to do the right thing, religion is good.
Yeah.
I mean, but we gotta be careful though, because like which aspects of religion is good? Because I mean, we can talk about it from the Christianity standpoint, but then there's so many pagan religions, and like and like I said, like I mean, I think it really goes back to just like where it started. Like people were desperate, they were scared, they were looking for security, so they started worshiping the sun. They stumbled upon a superpower that was not, in some cases, not the correct power, and they continued to worship something that provided them some sense of security
Yeah.
when they had nothing. So I mean, in some ways, it's like, I mean, and that kind of like goes to like my next point too, or question is like, why y'all think there's so many different religions with this same similar like events that take place? Because like if I understand it correctly, like Buddha supposedly had 12 disciples and had reincarnation and was born of a virgin or whatever. And I think in the Muslim religion, it's also the same way, if I understand it correctly. And then if y'all ever, I did some other pieces too, and there's like, how in the Old Testament it references Moses and the children of Israel and so forth. And in these other books, they had characters whose names started with M, like variations of Moses and similar stories. So it's like, why y'all think there's so many religions with similar like timelines and stories and events like as well?
I mean, I personally just think like everyone just think that they are right. I mean, it's really nothing more, nothing less to that, man. Because like even with religion we follow, it's like literally a minute difference from other religions, right? But it's just everybody, they'll read the Bible or whatever their choice of, finding the word of God. They'll read that and then they'll have their own interpretation. They'll say, you know what, we're right. We're gonna create our own, our own religion here, right? And the thing is where I, I'm trying to pick my words carefully, man, but I always find it odd that the people that persecuted Jesus was religious people.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, the more like I read and the more I'm realizing like, man, we should really be all leaning more towards the love that Christ had, because like even Christ was condemning some of the people that was trying to condemn him from saving the woman in the street. It's coming fuzzy to me. Like he literally was telling them like, you guys are what's the
He
word I'm
who
looking
has
for?
he who has not sinned cast the first stone.
Right. And then they also was like being backslided because they was taking out their sheep and their cattle and I guess going to get food and water for them, and it was like look, you breaking the Sabbath as well. So it runs deep as far as with why a lot of I'm gonna lean on Christianity is migrated or broke apart, but I personally think it's just you'll find different groups of people that just simply say, okay, we interpreted it this way, right? Because a lot of stuff, a lot of material out there is not black and white. Like we can read a passage of a scripture and we'll have four different meanings, right? It's just kind of how it is. So
Yeah, no, I'll chime in. You to bring to a great point. It's a great question because you see so many similarities between like religions, as you mentioned. Like most of them believe like we're going to a certain place. Most of them believe there's a creator. Most of them believe in like generosity, stuff like that. Most general religions, if you look around the basis of a lot of them, they have those aspects to it. And it's like it just brings up a great point. It's like, is it so far off to believe that like there really is like one real truth, right? Which I believe there is, of course, as it says in the Bible, and that some people have kind of taken off and branched off into some aspects of it and just changed words or done stuff or maybe taken a story. I mean, we look at
Absolutely.
I mean, we look at a story. I mean, just amongst ourselves, and we could, as DG brought it, like there can be so many different versions of the same story. Like, I remember there was a game like we used to play as kids. Like I used to play it back in New York. I played it maybe once or twice. It's called Telephone. People probably know it. And you get like a line of people, you put people in a circle,
Mhm.
and then you have one person tell like a story or a secret or a line, whatever, and then it's supposed to be secretly told around the room, and it's supposed to be gotten back to the person.
okay.
And never once does it get back the same way.
Come on,
And like
somebody.
it never gets back the same way. Like that's
Yeah.
how it has always worked. And that was a game. Like it was just an interesting like little plot to see like how the story just changes from ear to ear.
Hmm.
Yeah, you know, let me come in here real quick too, because what you just said, Strauss, is about like that's one of the things that at least I've seen Jewish folks. To me, that's the best argument
I do what you mean.
against the whole the oral tradition, the oral Torah, which is passed down from generation to generation. And I mean, I've heard it be defended that, yeah, the telephone game is a great example of how things could get messed up, but they have a defense for it. But that's really a different discussion. But there's a whole bunch of similarities. If you look at most religions, especially back in the day, they all have some sort of a flood account, right?
Hmm.
So obviously in the Bible we know about Noah and the ark, but there's also a story called the Epic of Gilgamesh, which some
Come
of
on.
you guys probably know about, right? And
Yeah.
other religions have similar flood stories as well. So to me, it just speaks to the fact that there are some real historical events that everybody knows happen, right? Not everyone necessarily understands what the full history, the full story, but everyone kind of experienced it and they're trying to explain it in their own ways. So, like with the Epic of Gilgamesh, he was like, I forget exactly, but he was part God, part man, and
Yeah.
he had to. He kind of was the Noah figure in that culture. So the ark, the design of the ark was much different from the ark of the Bible. It's
It
kind
was
of
like square shape.
like a cube, yeah. So
Yeah.
and it was way bigger than the ark. And you think about the feasibility of this thing actually floating in water. Not to get into that really, but all of these that flood account is recorded in almost every major religion in the past. So it just speaks to the fact that everyone knows these things are happening. These natural events, they don't all know why, but they have a reason to explain it their own way. So to me, it just gives credence to a lot of what we see in the Bible. So obviously, the account of Noah and the ark, I've seen that the dimensions of the ark with the whole cubits, I don't remember right now, but the cubits by cubits by cubits is very similar to some of the large cargo boats that are made today. So it's very realistic, much more feasible to float than the cube of the Epic of Gilgamesh, things like that. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities, and it's just because these things really happen.
And I think too, like, I mean, going back, but it's really like the plan of the devil, like for real, because it's like, how do you cut through the red tape to figure out like, okay, what's going to be real and what's not going to be real? Because like if it was like all the stories were absolutely different, then like, you know what I'm saying, that would be hard to sell, because like there's going to be some stuff, some fragments here and there that's going to prove one of those stories over the other. So knowing that there's pieces that you can't do nothing about, that's all over, like the only way to confound people is to make the story similar to a certain degree. So it's like, how do you, like, I hear y'all saying like, well, it's the Bible, but then like, how do you how do you know what is the oldest? Because I think it comes down to determining like, okay, what is the oldest dated scriptural or religious writings that can be found, like can be cited or what have you, and then that would be your starting point, because from whatever those oldest writings are, that would have been the originator, and then everything else would have came from that has similarities.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
mean, I just wanted to touch from what I've read and what I've seen. The story of Gilgamesh was written first. That flood story. That's what I seen. You know, that's what I noticed when I read. So you know
How
that's
old
go.
is that story?
Huh?
How old is the story?
Check it. You gotta check it out for yourself, brother. I
Uh,
I don't got it written down.
well, you
But
can't say it came before and you don't have the timeline,
Well,
because
let's see. Let's
okay,
see.
listen. Go ahead and research it for yourself. But this is what I read. I didn't. I should have wrote it down. My bad. But yeah. But no, I mean, as far as um to answer your question, what you was asking, I believe it's the Hebrew, right? The Bible was first translated into the Hebrew language, if I'm not mistaken, and then from the Hebrew language, that's where it kind of migrated out, and then that's when we got the translation. I believe it was in the 1700s where it was written in English, and then it was redone in the 1800s by uh, King James, right? By King James. Am I right on my timelines, Fortunato? Go ahead, speak.
well, I mean, the only thing I was gonna say, like, I mean, you pretty much on it, but like, the Hebrew writings is about 3,500 years old, and
Mm,
like, if we date it back, like, now we can start plugging in. Okay, well, when did Muhammad or Buddha, or when did these other people come on to play? Because if the Hebrew writings is about 3,500 years old, then either those writings are going to be older than the Hebrew writings, which I'm a 99.9% sure they're not, or they're going to be coming a little bit after the Hebrew writing. But remember though, like, the Old Testament is the law, which was in Hebrew, and the New Testament was Greek. So the Hebrew law was the piece that came like way before. And I think that's important for, like, what I'm saying, to establish when we're talking to people about like different religions, is like going back and finding like what is the oldest dated religious scriptural writings, and then starting from that timeline.
yeah.
Well, from what I'm seeing, DJ is right in terms of Gilgamesh being written earlier, older. So that seems to be the case. Now we know that Moses is the one who wrote the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, right? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Now Moses came much later than, I mean, obviously the flood, right? Like, if
Yeah.
I think that's pretty clear. We don't really need to get into detail on that. So while his writing of Genesis, that's where the flood story is, while his writing came after the Epic of Gilgamesh, while I can see why someone may think, well, oh, he wrote it afterwards, so he copied it, I don't necessarily think that. I mean, I don't believe that's the case, and I don't think that that type of thinking necessarily has to apply all the time. While I understand why someone could think that, it's just Moses, these things happened way before, but he's the one who recorded them. So the Epic of Gilgamesh was written because that event took place well before Moses happened. Whoever, I'm not exactly sure the culture that it is, they recorded it, they wrote it, but it's according to them. Moses wrote it according to
But like,
His
dated
account.
though, how old are we talking with the flood of Gilgamesh?
So I'm seeing
Oh, you
something
looked it
here that
up.
says,
Uh,
yeah, it's saying parts of it was written of Gilgamesh was written in 2100 BC. They're
mm,
saying parts of it,
that sound about
because
right. I think
it's a
that's what I seen.
long, because there's more to it than just the whole flood thing, but that's like the biggest piece of it. Um, so, and they're saying, what else? The flood occurred around 2300 to 2400 BC. So I guess the Gilgamesh was written not long after it took place, whereas Moses wrote it, obviously later in Moses' time.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in and what's also kind of tough is like as we know, like obviously things were changed in the Bible, right? It's
All the
Jesus
time.
is not Jesus, it's Yeshua, right? So
Mhm.
I mean that's where sometimes I get a little a little flustered sometimes, or I don't know if flustered is the right word, because like if I were to write King Darrow Bible, right, I'm gonna write it in my tongue in the way that I want it written, so that's the thing. Of course I believe the Bible was a good source, but I think that just shouldn't we should look for the truth, man. We shouldn't just read the Bible alone. We should try to search out and try to find the real origins of things, just like you saying Fortunato was trying to find the original. Like obviously we're not going to be able to read Hebrew, but I'm sure by now there's sources out there that we can uncover like what exactly is the real truth,
But
Yeah.
Now,
real quick, I just want
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Go
say
ahead. Go ahead.
it's so what you're saying is right, DJ. But you know what, man, I find it so hard now because it's almost like I need to connect with a professor of archaeology or something. Because what did I just
Yeah,
say?
yeah,
1200 BC or
yeah.
something, right? I'm reading
Mhm.
something else now that says 650 BC. Like
Like
people write
people
things,
just write
it's
whatever
hard
they
to
want,
know.
man. Sometimes.
Yeah, like it's
Yeah,
really difficult sometimes to really
yeah,
like you have to really have a reputable source. Like it can't be a quick Google
hundred
search
percent.
because
Yeah,
it's all over the place. So that's all
Yeah,
I'm
I
hundred
saying.
mean,
percent.
y'all both hitting it on the head. I mean, when I first found out like there was more than 66 books in the Bible, like that was, I mean, in the Bible
It's
there was
quotes,
extra
yeah.
books, yeah, that were not included because they didn't include some kind of like caveat of mention of Jesus or something like that. I don't remember the full thing, but
Yeah.
when I found that out, I was like, man, wait a minute. So this whole time I'm reading this Bible and it's not even the full thing. Like why I don't have the full story? Like
Hmm.
why I can't get the full thing? Like why y'all leaving parts out? It makes you feel some type of way in some way,
Yeah,
but it's just like I said, you got to seek out the truth for yourself. I think the only ones I've really read is a few. I've read Enoch for sure. Um,
that's what I was just talking
so
about
wait,
Fortunato with that about
so
Enoch.
let's be clear. First of all,
Oh,
King
here we go.
James
All right, bro.
King James was a man of color, and the canonized Bible was put together for a purpose to first of all so people would know who God is, come to salvation, and to repent of their sins. That was the purpose of the canonized Bible. And Martin Luther, I don't remember his exact quote, but he had got support in having those extra books removed, because to a novice reader it would throw them off of the point of knowing God, coming to salvation, and repenting. So that's why for a novice reader it wasn't included. But
but they
I
include Song of Solomon. I'll just say, I
I
just
mean,
say.
No,
it,
there's some books in the
No,
Bible,
I
bro.
mean like, no, I just mean it's a good book, but I just
but
mean
I
like
mean,
to your
and you
point,
can
like,
download it too. Like you get the 1611 version on Apple Play Store, or whatever, and it
yeah,
has all
yeah,
the books in there.
yeah.
Like,
Like I said, I've read a couple, not all, but
but
yeah.
I mean, and I don't want to stray off, but it's like, man, most of our people like be in church 20, 30, 40 years, and they still like stuck on the
It's like,
Beatitudes, bro. Like they'll
hey,
never ever get to those books, like to
hey,
understand or even like get value from that. But
that is true.
anyway, like, so do y'all think too, like, because
Throwing that
as we
shade,
know
ain't you,
this,
boy?
like there's a gap in the timeline, right, with Jesus's life in the Bible. And like, do y'all think I've heard like accounts, and I've probably seen like a episode of a National Geographic on the History Channel type things, where
Hmm.
they said that there's possible proof that Jesus went to other places
Country.
or other countries or regions, spreading the gospel and kind of teaching them of the gospel before the last 3 years or so of his life that was documented in the Bible. Do y'all think that's a possibility too? Because
Oof.
if it is, I mean, that would be like possibly where India gets their rendition, or another country or what have you might have gotten their slight rendition.
I never heard of that, but I mean,
Yeah.
I think obviously we know about his birth, his couple early years, and then he's 30. right? So he obviously had a whole life in between,
Yeah.
30, 20 something years in between, that we don't really have any
Account.
historical record
Yeah.
about, at least not according to the Bible. So is it possible? I suppose. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know what to think, but I I don't necessarily think so, because I don't know that his mission was to go to these other places. I think it was more so a thing for his disciples to do. To obviously the Great Commission is for us to spread the gospel, to go out into all the world. So I think obviously Paul, who was a great apostle for the Lord, he obviously went a lot of places. Others did too. I don't know that he necessarily did that, because I believe he was called to the lost sheep of Israel initially, right? And of course he was rejected, and so um, the gospel
So
was
his
extended
own
to
rejected
the
him, right?
Gentiles. Yeah,
That's what the verse says. Oh, okay.
right. So then that's what I'm saying. So then it extended to there's Gentiles in that region where he was. He didn't have to go far, right there around Israel too. So I mean, I don't know. Could he have traveled around? Maybe, but I have no idea.
I mean,
Yeah. I
so do
mean,
you think?
oh.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna be short. I was gonna say, I mean, anything is possible. We know the things was taken out of the Bible. I heard a brother actually even say like, Jesus was married with kids. So
And that's the Da
That's
Vinci. That's the Da Vinci
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, they
so
off
I,
base with that stuff.
yeah, I mean the thing is we have to do our homework. I mean, eh, like I always say, man, because we can literally go back and forth all day with this stuff, man. I feel like the kingdom is right here in your heart, man, in my opinion. But I'm gonna digress on that, man. But in my opinion, you have to have the love of God right here, man,
Amen.
because you could just get confused. There's probably some cats that done went around ring around the rosy until they just ring themselves right out of church because they they got so confused. I'm trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong. So
I mean, so do y'all think like we're called to be religious?
So
mm,
I thought it was a great question. I don't know if we're necessarily called to be religious, but I think we were all called to worship. I think
I
all
like that.
humans. I think all humans were
I
made
like
to
that.
worship. Whether you worship God or you worship whatever, you worship something. Like most humans, for the most part, believe in something other than themselves. Like most humans don't just think,
Most
yeah, yeah, I want to say most
or
because
science,
you
right?
can't, yeah, or science, exactly. Most people don't think I am the center of this and I rule all of this, I control it. Nobody really thinks that, you know. Well, I see David
Go
Tune his
ahead.
face.
Go
Some
ahead. Go ahead.
some people may. Well, for the most part, people believe that there is something other than themselves going on. Um, and so in some ways, yes, so to answer your question, yes, I guess that makes us all religious in a sense, but I guess it goes down to what are you actually putting your religion to? What are you actually worshiping? Some people worship Buddha, Muhammad, Krishna, whatever. Some people worship mountains. Some people worship,
Dogs,
hey, dogs,
Cows,
cows.
dogs.
People worship anything nowadays.
money,
Like every
women.
anything nowadays, people worship, but they worship something. So
Well, what I was smiling for, because I mean, I think you 100% right. We were made to worship. My only thing I was just saying is that I get what you're saying, but when I was as you were talking, I'm thinking, you know what? Everybody worships something, even those who think they're not, because that means you're worshiping yourself. The
mhm.
self deification, which I think is really prevalent nowadays, where it's like, oh, I'm not submitting to anything. I'm my own boss. Well, you worshiping yourself. You follow your
Sure.
own drum. So in that sense, I get what you were saying, but I was just thinking, in that sense, everybody really is worshiping something.
Hmm.
It's either themselves or it's something else. But that is what we were created to do: is to worship, and not to worship ourselves. Obviously, we were created to worship the King of the universe. Um, so there's that. Now, so were we called to be religious? I No, I don't think so. But I I, I kind of had hinted at it a little earlier when I was saying, the purpose of religion. We're talking about the origins, and I was pretty much saying it is good in a sense, because while we look at religion versus spirituality, right? And I think probably most of us would agree that spirituality is a better place to be than simply religious, because religious simply implies adhering to customs and traditions, right?
Come on now. Yeah.
So that's not necessarily the best thing to do. You really should have a relationship. And of course, as Christians,
Come on
we're
now.
talking about a relationship with Christ, right?
Yeah.
So that's really what.
Preach it how you want to preach it, bro.
Well, but the thing is, what I want to say though, is because again, I'm not just necessarily dismissing religious stuff, because see, certain things were put in place to bring us to that place
Closer.
of spirituality.
Yeah.
So while it may be a tradition to, let's say, dress a certain way at church, now that in and of itself does not bring you closer to God, right? Just dressing a certain way. But what does that teach you? It teaches you about modesty. And that is something that God wants from us, right? He does not want us to be all, what's the opposite of modest? Immodest, I guess, right? So that's just an example of a religious practice bringing you closer spiritually. But it's not the practice, it's not the religion itself that's important. But without it, you might not have gotten to the place of spirituality. So I don't necessarily just dismiss religious practices, as I feel a lot of people do, because I think people all about, because the thing is, when I hear a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual today, these are not Christians, first of all. The ones I hear, they're spiritual, but they're spirit, and you follow what spirit? There's many spirits. The Bible tells us that, right? God's not the only spirit. So they're spiritual, but for what purpose? To what end? So like that, just being spiritual is not enough. You have to have the right basis first. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, and I think like religion, being religious, like y'all saying, in itself is not a bad thing, because in a sense it brings people to peace. It brings people to, just a place of just being okay with, with things and circumstances, and just being able to move through life and kind of figure things out in a better space than if they didn't have that behind them. But I think that's just about it. Like, because like it's just believing in the superpower, this, everybody's religious. Like 99% of the people that you'll come across is religious, because most people believe in a superpower. So like, or a greater power, something bigger than them. But
I don't know. I kind of Oh, my bad.
No. I mean that's pretty much it. It's just like, I was gonna move into the next question. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, I kind of agree with what DTH is saying to an extent. But a lot of times, where in my experience, just seeing my folks, and seeing other people within our denomination, like, religion is work, man. And I sometimes think like it takes us away from what God actually want us to do, especially like on the Sabbath, on Saturdays, man. Like I'll talk to my mom, and she be beat because she, what I'm saying, she gotta moderate and then do this and do that in church, and then I'm just like, man, ain't it supposed to be a rest day? It's a Sabbath, right? So that's why sometimes, like, I really don't get it. Like, there's nothing wrong with going to church or anything like that, but I feel like, bro, every week you sometimes you're up from early in the morning, especially like folks that used to go to church in New York, and if they lived in New Jersey, like my grandfather used to. Man, remember we had to wake up 7 o'clock in the morning to try to drive to church to get there before everybody else get there, and we stayed to about 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, bruh, come on. we supposed to be resting today. But that's my take on it.
And I think like that's not even like just being religious. That's a whole nother other piece. That's just church operation, and something I think we'll probably get to in a different place. I had, listen, Saturday morning gone, boy. I was in one of them modes. Like I was, I was kind of being full of the requirements, but it's like well, anyway, I digress. But I think that's more so like, church business and
well,
like, yeah. So
that's the ritual of it, though, bro. That's
what he's saying. It's that's the religious part. That's what I'm saying. It's good to a degree, right? To an extent. But when people place that above having a relationship with Christ, that's where it gets wrong. And I think we've seen a lot of that in our churches, right? So
Yeah,
I think that's why a lot
it's
of
like a social
younger
group sometimes, man. Like, I'm telling you, I'm trying to pick my words out. But you know,
keep in mind,
sometimes you
man.
go to the wrong social group and it's like, bro, I don't think you belong here. I'm
Mm.
keeping it 100. Sometimes you go to the wrong church and it's like, you know, you looked at like an outcast, man. So
Yeah, and
it's
that's the problem, because I don't want to make it seem like we off put in, like, church and the organization of church, but it's like that's the problem when there's too many religious people in the building and not enough people with relationships with God. Because like when it's
Yeah,
all about being religious, then it becomes a skeptical, then it becomes like an orchestration. Now it's a production. But when it's
exactly.
a really, and you could tell like when it's different, like
you
because
can feel the spirit. You can feel that,
when you
man.
in a place when people are about a relationship with God,
Come on, man.
like the energy is different. There's
Come
more
on, man.
time spent in prayer. Like I don't know about y'all, but it's like churches don't even pray as much as they do, like how they used to, like back in the day. Like sometimes it'd be like y'all know how it used to go. Like it'd be prayer in the morning before church start, like, and for like 30 minutes or whatever. And it's like people ain't doing that no more. Now it's more of a production. Like depending on what church you go to, everybody getting
It's a
paid.
production. I
Like
like that.
they got a 60-minute power service. Like what you
Yes.
gonna get? Like
Yes,
And
it's
we're
good.
also being taken away from we're supposed to be evangelizing. Like we don't want to keep
Us.
preaching against people, but that's what we're really supposed to do. Like, all right, they the people that's in church, they've been here like, all right, 5, 10 years. I think they good now. Let's try to see if we can tell somebody else about Jesus, right?
Yeah,
That's the gospel.
100%,
Or
Go into all the
100%,
world.
My bad.
100%,
And,
man.
and and the thing is too, my bad, DTH.
Go
I'm
ahead,
gonna
go
I'm
ahead.
gonna say this. I'm gonna let you go. A lot of times with religion, man, it's honestly based on what region you come up in. Like, I know this is gonna be, Fortunate probably may not agree with me, but like if we were to be born in India, our perhaps our religion might be different, right? So I mean, at the end of the day, man, I think it's on the relationship that you have with God, man, because it's about how you treat your brothers and your sisters on this earth, in my opinion, man. I believe that's what it's about, and I'm sticking to that, bro. You know,
Yeah, well, to back just to backpedal a little bit to the whole the religious piece of it. Dang, my bad, I kind of forgot. No,
my
but
bad, my bad,
no,
my
no,
bad.
no. But it's true that these things can really derail you from what's most important. And so, oh, I can't remember now. So the people that we're talking about who are all about keeping these customs and practices, I feel like a lot of them have a good heart, to be honest, but they don't have the right um, tools. So basically, they're working off of a works based faith, meaning you have to do things to please God. You have to do this. You have to go to church, keep the Sabbath. Don't do this, do that, in order to please Him. When really, you don't do things to please Him,
Yeah,
but you were saved, and then you want to do these good things because you're saved. You're not doing it to
yes,
be saved. But I think a lot of
yes,
people are kind of stuck in that mindset. So while they
amen.
may have good intentions, they're just they need a little bit of a push to get to the right place, I believe.
Well said. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Lee.
I was gonna say what both of y'all are kind of hitting on. Like, it's pretty much a lot of what we'll probably get into when we get into a lot of the spirituality in part three. A lot, there has to be some kind of mixture of religious and spirituality. If you think about it, in some sense, you have to have some kind of process that you go through, and you have to have your heart into it in a sense. And we'll get there. But before we kind of wrap up, I just wanted to say, like, it says in our dear old chapter James, if any man among you seems to be religious, bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth not his heart, this man's religion is vain. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is to this: to visit the fatherless, the widows in their affliction, and to help keep himself unspotted from the world. So I mean, DJ pretty much hit it. Like our main mission, our main thing that we're supposed to do here is evangelize. We're supposed to be, getting people to Christ, getting people, in better situations. That's our mission here. And a lot of times we get caught up in the process. We get caught up in what we got to do in the day-to-day and the religious aspects of it. So,
thanks. Hey, man, I think it's well said, man. Like y'all say, there has to be a healthy balance between religion and spirituality, because on one spectrum, with 100% religion, you have the Pharisees. And then on the other side, with just 100% spirituality and no religion tied to it, you got everything else and crystals and everything else going on. So you know what I'm saying, man? I think we covered a lot of good points, man. And I don't know if y'all boys got anything else y'all want to wrap it up with before we get up out of here.
No, that's it, man. You nailed it on the head, man.
Yeah,
I think we killed it.
Good topic, man. We have a whole lot more to get into, I'm sure. We just scratching the surface, so definitely a good topic tonight.
Hey, man, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We on YouTube Live, man, every episode, every Tuesday. Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff, Facebook, man. Make sure y'all tap in. This has been the Hold Your Point podcast. We are the Hold Your Point podcast crew, and until next time, man, we out.
We out.